It's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host for a special edition of the Zach Ballinger Show. We began doing this in 2021. I'm really excited. We're bringing a career expert on every couple of weeks to answer your questions. We're going to focus on you and your career. We're here to help you. We're going to be doing this all year. So if you want to email me in questions as you get these, Zach at zachballinger.com. We are streaming via live Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching out there, enter those questions into the comment box. We did have some emailed in, and we will make sure to get to them. Jess, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Zach. I'm really excited to be here and to share and see how many people we can support.
Awesome. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a career coach. I help people who are unhappy with their careers to find a path that they love by connecting with their inner power. And so I've done this work for about 2 years now. And prior to getting into coaching, I actually worked on recruiting teams at a Fortune 500 tech company for 4 years. So I had that opportunity to see what hiring was like from the inside and how hiring teams think. And I interviewed over 1,000 different candidates during that time and looked at even more resumes. And so that was a really great experience to then bring together my desire to help people on a deeper level is why I wanted to move into the direction of coaching, which is what I do now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we'll hit these questions right off the top of the back. Number one question we get the most asked, and we've had this submitted in today, is how do you find work you love? What's this concept mean? Can you actually be happy in your job?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to give you a little personal perspective, I grew up with a dad who still does, woodworking and cabinetry. So, anything beautiful you want built in your home, he can make it for you. And he loves this work. He loves it. He works so much. And I don't even remember him ever complaining about it, right? Very rarely. And so I grew up with that inspiration of like, wow, I can find something too that I really, really enjoy. So I was really lucky to grow up in a space, where I have this inspiration from my dad. So I was always really focused on finding a career that I loved, worked really hard in school, and I ended up in a job as an analyst, which was supposed to be my dream job. It was going to be amazing, right? And it was absolutely the wrong fit. I was not good at it. I didn't like it. And it was honestly really, really jarring and shocking to realize that I had gotten it wrong, right? It's pretty painful to suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I'm on the wrong career path. So that was an opportunity for me to pause, stop, and say, okay, who am I as a person? What do I love? What am I good at? Right. And how can I then translate that into work that's going to be satisfying for me? So I think that it's fully possible for all of us to find jobs that we really enjoy. I think that the starting point is really getting intentional about who you are and what you want to be doing. And so I think when we can find that combination of our natural strengths and activities that we enjoy doing, when we can incorporate some of that into our career, that's when it becomes satisfying. And of course, nothing's going to be perfect, right? Nothing's going to be absolutely awesome every single day. But in the bigger picture, if you can have work that you enjoy, it makes life so much better because we spend so much time working, if we're being honest about it. So I think it's really important to strive for that and work towards that.
Thank you for that. What specific tactics, if somebody's listening to the show right now and they're like, what do I do today? I'm stuck in a job I hate. What should I do? What's my game plan, Jess? Give me something to look forward to doing as far as activity wise.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what I would start doing in your current position is to set a timer for each hour of the day. And at the top of the hour, check in with yourself and say, how am I feeling? What am I doing? How am I feeling? What am I doing? So, an example could be, how am I feeling? I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm feeling not engaged. What am I doing? I'm entering data into this spreadsheet. This is, again, my personal example. So then, you go on through your day, you're doing other activities. How am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling really inspired right now. I'm feeling excited. What am I doing? oh, I'm mentoring the intern on my team, right? So that's how you can start to notice what are the activities that you're enjoying and the activities that are giving you energy versus the activities that you're not enjoying and are depleting your energy. So watch that energy flow. And it's easy to say, I don't like anything about my career, right? But when you start looking at those little pieces, like anything that you can grab onto and kind of expand upon, use that as inspiration. So for me, the things that I loved were not actually part of my job description. I loved networking with other teams. I loved mentoring the intern, right? I loved connecting with everyone on LinkedIn and digging around on that platform. So keep an eye out for those things that are giving you energy, and then keep an eye out for those things that are taking your energy away.
Gotcha. And, that's so true. And that's why a lot of times we recommend career journals. So you're able to keep up with this. Now, a lot of people don't carry pen and pads anymore, but there's no excuse not to have so many apps out there. I know Day One's a great app. There's actually the notes section in your iPhone where you can just type in these day one, February 5th, career stuff. And so as you keep this journal, you'll learn more about yourself. It sounds kind of a little bit cheesy at first, but actually the studies have shown the people that are the most successful and the most organized are the ones that have to-do lists, and they maintain these goals and tactics among their career. So thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Somebody writes in and says salary negotiation. How do you handle this? What's the best way to negotiate salary and get the best offer for myself?
Yeah. So I think one of the main things when it comes to salary is being prepared. I think this is something that a lot of people get thrown off by. And I would say that you should be prepared to talk about salary on the very first call with the recruiter. I think that's another place where people get thrown off, is that they think, oh, this is just a call with the HR team, right? It's going to be super simple. We're not going to talk about salary yet. And sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. At the company that I worked for, we always asked about salary on the first call. So that was my job in particular, right? It was to say, hey, what are your salary expectations in your next role? And the reason that they're asking so early in the process is because if you're totally out of misalignment, like let's say you're shooting for 150,000 and the company can only offer 100,000, we don't want to put you through the whole interview process to get to the end, and we can't, make ends meet and create a win-win for both sides. So I would say preparation is number one. Do some research on what are the market trends, right? Go on Glassdoor, go on salary.com, have an idea in mind of what this type of role makes. I would also say do informational interviews and ask people about salary. And instead of saying like, hey, how much are you making, right? Because that's uncomfortable. You can use that salary information that you collected and say, I'm noticing that for account executives, they're making between 90,000 and 110,000. Would you say that that's accurate? So then they have an opportunity to share and say, whoa, that's like way lower than my experience, way higher, or yeah, that's about right. So that's how you can start gathering data on what type of salary is appropriate. And then practice that conversation ahead of time. So again, practice, because I think it is a taboo thing to kind of talk about. It is uncomfortable to talk about money and how much we're going to make. And so I think practicing some of that language ahead of time is really helpful. And then the third thing that I would say is approach it from a win-win standpoint. Like approach it from, you want to have a win in being excited for this role, right? And the company wants to have a win is in hiring a great candidate on board. They want you to be excited. They want you to be engaged. No one wants to start on a bad foot. So I think really approaching it from that win-win standpoint and identifying what in your experience is unique that you can kind of leverage, right? To say, well, I bring this to the table, and use that to your advantage too.
Good advice. A lot of times we teach college students at the college level that do not to bring up salary in the first interview. And I think what you mean by that is you're not going to go into it with a hiring manager, sit down and say, hey, I want to make this. Let them bring it up to you. You don't
Yeah.
want to start out the call by saying, look, I need this much money before we move on. Most of the time that's going to come up. Hey, what are your salary expectations? And then I like giving them a range, and he who has the most information usually wins. So you're exactly right. You want want to make sure you've done your homework to know what exactly are these positions paying, what are the max, what is the range, what is the minimum. And like you said, I like some of those resources that you give, the glass doors, and definitely salary.com is another one. So a lot of good information there. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Somebody writes in, they said, I'm not really good at anything. So how do I find something that I like to do if I'm not good at anything?
Yeah. So I would say you are good at something. Maybe you haven't discovered it yet. And I think that, again, we've been conditioned a lot to kind of put ourselves down, or even just we're doing a lot of internal critic stuff, right? Oh, you're not good enough at this, you're not good enough at that. And I think another thing that I see a lot with job seekers is that everyone sees I won't say everyone, a lot of people see their skills as just average, where they say, oh, that was so simple. Like if I could do it, anyone could do it. But that's not really true. That's totally not true. And I've been so inspired by the different strengths that individuals have. So, one of my best friends, we went through being an analyst together, and he totally excelled at it. He was the top of our class. I was probably somewhere near the bottom. And so, it was really cool to see how he could look at the equations and figure things out, right? And that was his strength. But for me, on the other end, I happen to be better at navigating social situations. So that was a totally opposite skill, right? And he is a little bit more anxious in social situations. And so I think we all do have these skills. And I would start to get curious about what are the things that I'm good at. Maybe it's not in your job. Maybe you start in your personal life, right? Like maybe I'm really good at navigating social situations, right? Maybe I'm really empathetic towards people. There are strengths that you have. And I think one way that you can kind of start to gain insight around that is asking people in your life what you're good at. So ask your family, ask your friends, ask coworkers, maybe ask professors or anyone else that you've had the opportunity to interact with. Ask them what they think you're good at, and then see the patterns in all of that information and see what really resonates with you. And then start to own that. Step into that. If you're good at data analysis, you don't have to be the best person in the world to be good at it, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't see our own strengths in the mirror. We wake up every day, and I hear this all the time, I'm not good at anything. I just don't buy that. I think we're all made with unique strengths, abilities. Now, maybe it's a talent that you need to develop over time. But, for example, I give in my book is that my 4-H teacher actually kind of predicted my strength, and it was teaching, but I never saw it for 30 years. And
Wow.
so, just to think about something back then that I remember in the classroom, it's because she said, Zach, we all know you're going to be a teacher someday. And
Oh
I
my
was,
gosh.
and you think of the traditional model of teaching in high school, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So
Mhm.
she's way wrong on that. But when you mention teaching, how many other jobs out there are you actually teaching in? And then when you start learning about these career pathways, you're like, wow, there's a lot of jobs, not just a traditional high school teacher. There's a lot of teachers in different career pathways. So I
Yeah.
think you're exactly right. Great advice.
Yeah, and I would add quick that, like, even if you don't know what jobs are out there, take whatever little piece that you have as an inspiration and follow that. So if you say teacher has been recommended to you, right? Get curious. Go put that in Google. What careers involve teaching, even as a starting point, and see what comes up and allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole, because there's training and development, right? There's coaching. There's all sorts of ways that you can be teaching. And even though you might not be aware of what they are right now, if you let that curiosity flow, more ideas are going to come to you and more opportunities.
Gotcha. The next question is, it says, I work a full-time job and I have a side hustle. When do I decide when to quit my full-time job to devote my full-time efforts towards my side hustle?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would say it's different for each person. I have a lot of entrepreneur friends at this point from the business coaching programs that I've been in, and it happens different for everyone. So some people will, it sounds like this person in particular already has their business going. Sounds like maybe they're already making money potentially. My thought is that if you're making more money in your side business than your full-time business, that's an indicator that it's safe to leave. For me, I had money saved up. And for me, it was actually going to be a legal conflict for me to help people get careers and do recruiting at the same time. So I got kind of pushed out of the nest early, which worked great for me. I actually got a job in a restaurant part time. So I kind of did a scale down of like my full time corporate work, which was really intense, to part time at a restaurant, and then to full time in my business. So I think you have different options. I would say the financial piece is the most unpredictable piece in my opinion. So I would just make sure that you've got a plan around that. But if you're really passionate about your side hustle, I would say go for it. That's really amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you got to make sure you have the boat close enough to the dock before you jump off. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, if you're making more than your full-time job, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, if you're used to your lifestyle and your bills are adding up to be 70,000 and you're making 10,000, then you may want to get a little bit closer in that middle and be able to manage your finances to where that. Now, that doesn't need to be a forever thing. This could be, hey, we're still working on our side hustles. I know many people that are out there in this type economy that are doing 3 or 4 different types of jobs.
Right.
And a lot of times people are doing side hustles because that's what they love to do. So grow those over time, develop those skills. And I think you'll know kind of when it's time. What do you
Mhm.
think about that advice?
I think that the universe takes us in the direction that we're meant to go in. So I would agree with that. Yeah. I would feel it out, make a plan. And then at some point, you have to take a leap of faith. It's definitely a leap of faith to jump off the edge, right? And kind of go into your own thing. But for me, I knew I could always go back if it didn't work out. I never wanted that. That was never my intention. But I was like, okay, if I do this for 6 months and it doesn't work, I could go get another recruiting job, right? You don't lose your experience or your skills that you had.
Thank you. And so the next question comes in. I've been getting a lot of job interviews, but I have not been able to land the job. What advice do you have for me? And it's sounds like this person's pretty frustrated with the job interviewing process.
Yeah. So I would say if you're getting interviews, you are doing something right. There are some people who are not getting any interviews. So acknowledge yourself. Okay, it's either your resume is working, maybe it's your networking that's working. Something in that process is working. So you've got step one figured out, which is great. So when it comes to interviewing, I think practice is huge. I think that a lot of times people kind of wing it or they think about it a little bit ahead of time, right? But they're not actively practicing questions. Like walk around your house and talk to yourself, talk through these interview questions. I would say a great way to practice is to take the job description for the role that you're applying for and take each of the bullet points and flip it into a potential question that they could ask you. That's a great way to practice because in the job description, those are the things they're going to want to hear about. And those are the things they're more than likely going to ask you about in the interview process. So I would start practicing those. And then if you have any opportunity to do a mock interview, even if it was with one of your friends, right? Hey, can you like sit down and uh, just be a face for me to talk to, right? Anything in that realm where you can get more practice is going to be great. And if you can do it with a professional or someone who's more versed in that, I think that would be, the ultimate practice to get some feedback on that. I think another thing you can do is more informational interviews to see where you're missing the mark. Try to talk that through with some people that have the target job that you're going after.
I agree. And the thing about it is I was interviewed a few years ago by the Embassy News, a local affiliate, and they asked me what the number one key to mastering a job interview, and I said mock interviews.
Mm,
Because, I think a lot of the times, and I've interviewed people over the time, and you'll hear an answer and you're like, whoa. And, a lot of times corporations can't offer feedback nowadays because of legal reasons.
mhm.
And so if a candidate keeps repeating a bad answer, how do they know that unless they work with a professional that's out there? And so I absolutely agree with you that is really important to mock interview. Um, the next question comes in is I'm not sure how to decide a major in college. I'm undecided. I have one semester down and I'm really struggling to know what to go into. It seems like a lifelong decision once I pick a major. How do you go about advising students to pick a major?
Yeah, this is a great question. I went into college as an undecided major too. And what happened for me was that I knew I loved my English classes. I knew that I loved my psychology classes in high school. So I had kind of wanted to move in that direction. But for me, and again, this is my personal experience, I was told that if I did English, I would have to be a teacher. I didn't want to do that, like a classic teacher, right? And I was told that if I did psychology, I would have to get a master's. And I was like, I've already committed to 4 years. I'm not ready to commit to 6, right? And so that kind of pushed me in a different direction, which ended up not being the right direction. So I would say, again, take the time to think about what classes have you loved? What has been really fun for you? What has really lit you up? I would find some professionals who have that career path or maybe like got that degree, right? If you're interested in psychology, go on LinkedIn and see what type of careers do people actually have with psychology degrees? What do they actually have with English degrees, right? And talk to some of those people to see what it's like in the real world. And then the other thing that I would add is that I know it feels like it's going to be permanent, but it's not. Like I have a degree and my degree is retail merchandising and management. I'm totally not using that, but college was a great experience for me. Like I still learned so much and matured so much during that time that I wouldn't take it back, even though I'm now not using my degree, right? And so I think this is where we struggle with our careers is we try to find the one ultimate thing. And sometimes our careers evolve. They're fluid, right? If you would have told me in college, well, you're going to be an entrepreneur, I would have said, no way, right? I had no idea that was coming until like a year before it happened. And it's been great to see how landed in this career that wasn't a fit, flowed into recruiting, which was a much better fit. And from there, that evolved into entrepreneurship. So it's okay for things to change. It's okay because you learn and you grow the older you get and the more experiences that you have. So trust that it's okay for things to change and be fluid in the future.
I'm so glad you said that because, back before the pandemic happened, when I was on college campuses, I'd sometimes be talking to college seniors and I would challenge them to find their passion. And they're like, well, I'm a senior, I've got one semester left and I'm not really enjoying my career in engineering. So might as well change it. And I was like, well, wait a minute now. First of all, let's find something that we're running to. Now, if all of a sudden you want to be a nurse, obviously we're going to have to adjust the academic plan, right? But if we're not sure where we want to go right now, you're a senior, you're getting ready to finish up, we're not suggesting you change your whole paradigm. Like you said, sometimes we focus too much on what our 4-year degree is. I know many people in who has had a major in psychology who has done different careers that is outside of psychology, sales, communications, journalism. So don't get so hung up on the specific degree. Finish your degree. And then a lot of times we can work out those things in the end. And that's, I think, what one a service that you provide is the career coaching angle. So, career coaching, I think, is an expensive maneuver to get into, but it's so well worth the money because what happens is, I think, a lot of times when somebody works with a career coach, they end up landing a career that they love, making more money, and the investment's already paid for the day they sign that job offer. And so I'm sure you tell your clients that too. This may be something where you're like, I'm not sure, but I guarantee you that it's almost like working with any professional. There's an ROI on it.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I would completely agree. And I think there's ROI in a variety of different ways that you kind of mentioned, right? It could be your salary, it could be your happiness. Like if you're in a career that you are happier, that spills over to your whole life. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients was working in events in a pretty toxic work environment as well, which just added to, the overall negativity. And it wasn't the right fit for her. And she ended up transitioning into a communications role where she got to be in management, a much better environment. She almost doubled her salary, which was insane. And she was like, Jess, I am so much happier. And that means the world to me, right? I'm so much happier. And you have no idea what it's like to not be miserable from 9 to 5 every single day. And I think that was the biggest ROI that she got, right? And so I would definitely agree that it's for sure an investment to work with a career coach, but it's great to have someone help guide you along this path, right? Someone as a sounding board. Sometimes my clients just need support through the process, from like an emotional standpoint, right? Just someone to be there to listen and say, oh, this happened and it was so frustrating that I didn't get this job, and have someone to kind of pick you back up and help you keep moving forward. So there are a lot of different benefits that come with investing in a career coach.
And the beauty about it is, if you're a college student out there listening, or you're a high school student, is that there's something called on college campuses career services centers. And those have professional career coaches that can do all this. It's just up to you to show up and continue to work with them. And where, Jess, if you're out there listening and you're a professional, like that question about the job interview, let's say you're getting all these job interviews and you're practicing, you're doing what the advice were, and you're still coming up a little short. That is a great way. Maybe you call Jess, get in, see what kind of services she can offer, because guess what, if you end up landing that job interview, it's worth all the resources and time that you paid to do it. And I would say another thing, Jess, you have to come motivated.
Yes.
I don't do a lot of the career coaching anymore because that's, there's a patience to it. But you have to have motivated people to come. And so if you decide to hire a career coach, come motivated and become ready to really do that. And I think a lot of times people are ready once they get to that career coaching moment. Would you say that motivation, it's almost like personal training? You can't, you can exercise, you can follow around your personal trainer, but you got to do the work at home.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can want it so badly for you, but if you don't want it for yourself, that's not going to translate. And it's not, I think this is kind of what you're alluding to. It's not the career coach's job to do the search for you. They are there as your strategist, as your partner, as your sounding board, as your motivator. But you still have to put in the work to, make the decision on, okay, which path am I going to pursue? You have to go to the interviews. You have to put in the practice time, right? I can't do that for you as the coach. So I think motivation and coachability, being willing to take feedback and being open about that, right, is very key for the relationship to be successful.
Now, where can people find you at, Jess? Can you share some of your social media links or maybe a website for the audience out there?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on my website. It's jesssmithcoaching.com. Or the best place to follow me is on LinkedIn, which is also Jess Smith Coaching. You can find me that way. I'm posting things 5 days a week. So I share about career clarity, job search strategy, and also a bunch of mindset information too.
Awesome. So if you guys need another LinkedIn connection, there you go. Jess has offered that. Hey, we appreciate this so much. You've been very helpful. This has been such great advice. Got a lot of positive feedback. We do appreciate your time. We know you're very busy helping a lot of folks, but we appreciate you giving back to this forum today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Zach. It's fun to have these conversations and to have you chiming in with your perspective. I always love being able to kind of go back and forth on stuff. And I think that's helpful to have multiple perspectives. So thank you for having me and letting me share.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much, and have a great day.